This programme only reflects the personal views of the programme hosts and/or the individual contributors.
Hello and welcome to Newsline. I'm your host, Yondan Latu, and our guest today is James Tin, a man who doesn't need much of an introduction, but you used to be the Liberal Party chairman and the tourism chief as well in Hong Kong. And of course, you're a very well-known businessman. Since you left the Liberal Party's chairmanship, since you stepped down from that, you've been keeping a bit of a low profile. What are you up to these days first? Let's tell us about it.
Well, firstly, from Liberal Party's viewpoint, we still try to do things as we have done in the past. But I guess without me as the party leader making the statement coming from me, people's reporting our current leadership as party leader and the chairman less. Because I guess whatever statement I make seems a little bit controversial. The reason I'm making less statement recently is that I think the whole issue leading to the current problem, which is a governance problem in Hong Kong, not about election, is really be a big problem until the next election. Because CY basically is not talking to the Pandams. And the Pandams by now will not talk to CY. So the whole civil service, including all the chief secretary, financial secretary, all the lot, is really caught in the middle. On one hand, they want to lobby policies to be passed in the Legislative Council and through the Finance Committee. On the other hand, the Pandams simply saying that I'm uncooperating with government. Full stop. I've never heard that before. Normally, as an elected representative of the people, your statement should be that I want to represent the people to monitor government. So if government does something good, we should support. Now they're saying that I'm totally uncooperative, which means that they will just filibuster your meeting, call for quorum. By the time they actually get to vote on something, they might vote yes. Now this is the ridiculous part. Nothing gets done, and I'm thinking that Hong Kong is going to waste 2 more years of Hong Kong's time. Of course, as a legislator, I think I'm wasting 2 years of my time as well.
I think nothing is getting done in LegCo. Now, all this is, of course, because of the stalemate of political reform, right? They don't want to accept the package under Beijing's restrictive framework. Where are we heading now? Are we going for a total gridlock here?
I think people only see the political reform issue, but I see it in a more wider perspective. CY is not working with the Pandam, thinking that with the executive-led government, and this is where I have an argument with him. I'm on the pro-establishment side. But hey, Mr. Chief Executive, I don't work for you. I'm elected by the people. So happened by the people of New Territory East. The people's view will be my view. The people, in that sense, is my boss. You're not my boss. So you're not going to tell me what to do. The government wants to see that the 42 pro-establishment side always stand together to vote against the 27 Pandam. And I'm saying that if you're not right, why should I stand with you against the Pandam? For example, right now on the Finance Committee, government decided to pull all the items away. That's unheard of. Since when the government in the past, when they're doing things in an orderly manner, put things into an agenda, and decided since I might be running out of time, I just put the thing out of agenda. And then after putting these items out of the agenda, the IT bureaus might not be passed by a certain day. Oh, I just add several meetings. They're adding 4 meetings on the Valentine's Day, February 14th. And on the other hand, the Pandams will say that if that's the game you want to play, they can play the same game too. So they keep adding motions to suspend the meeting and then motions to amendments. So they're going to filibuster the whole February 14th for 8 hours, wasting everybody's time.
So it's what's going on right now is basically a gloves off political fight in LegCo.
But I think it's a gloves on. It's not gloves off. They're actually doing blatantly. Yes. If you ask the Pandam, and government better notice this too, they're not losing in the polls, which means they're saying that there's a lot of people supporting them by making this nonsense of filibustering the Legislative Council, by making Legislative Council simply non-functioning. We're not functioning right now. We thought they would lose vote, but they are not. So government better look into this and say that, hey, the people is not really supporting them nor you. So if government thinks that if I add 4 meetings, you don't make a decision. I add 8 meetings, you don't make a decision. I pull items away, you don't make a decision. That government will get better rating. I don't see that. Last week, you see that the chief executive rating at 41% at the all-time low. So if that's the case, I think it's potentially 2 losers. The legislators as a whole will be a loser, and same thing with government on the executive arm. They will be a loser too, I mean in the eyes of the public.
So this is a very negative situation that we're looking at, a very, very grim future. I mean, so the next big flare-up in this is going to be the actual presentation of the government's final political reform package to LegCo. Realistic, do you think it's going to get passed? Being very realistic now and thinking about who they can sway.
Right. I'm friendly with the Pandams. Right now, they're all saying that none of them will decide to switch side. But I'm counting on the fact that the Pandams' point of democracy is you got to listen to the people, or you got to listen to your voters. So if the government or us supporting the current political reform package can persuade the people by saying a step forward, letting the 5 million people have a chance to vote, is better than voting no and let the next chief executive still voted by the 1,200 people. If the public buys that, I hope by June, when the voting actually takes place, if that polling shows that there's more people, like 60% supporting sort of getting this reform bill passed versus, let's say, 30 saying no, I still have confidence that the Pandam will eventually listen to the voice of the people, and some of them will use that argument to come and vote yes for the package, rather than right now, they're still saying that this is not voting time. The public's opinion is changing. The polling results changes every week, so let's wait and see later.
The problem with the polls is the Pandams are doing their own polls and the pro-government people are doing their own polls. And the Pandams, as far as they're concerned with the results of their polls, their voters don't want them to support this package. Do you think there's a need for some kind of comprehensive poll that everyone will accept, the whole city, and say, okay, let's see, what do the people want?
I agree with you. But I'm not saying that I'm looking at the government's poll or the Pandam's vote. The poll. I'm saying the more credible poll that is being conducted are probably by the Hong Kong University poll or by some major newspaper.
Well, we had a Lingnan University poll recently, and the result of that was less than half now want to pocket the proposal that the government will put before LegCo.
I noticed that. So I say it's still 50-50. But I hope by the end of the day, there's still like 4 more months, when people finally, at that time, that, hey, the decision has to be made. It's no longer debating time, talking reasons about yes and no. We feel that if we do it, it's better than no. And another strong argument that I keep talking to the Pandams privately is that, hey, look at it. Every time in the Legislative Council, the Pandam, the 27 of them, keeps telling Mr. CY, you should step down. Well, the only way that's going to work is that you vote for the passage to go through. When the passage of the bill passes through the Legislative Council, and in 2017, we will have direct election. In the 5 million voters, the Pandam actually have more influence than us. If you guys don't like CY, you can always support one of the other 2 candidates, if there are 3, sort of being contested for that job. You will be the kingmaker. You will decide who to elect. Now, in the unlikely event that CY gets the vote of the people, that's democracy. Nothing you can say, nothing I could say. But I don't think CY would be able to get himself re-elected if it's voted by the 5 million people, simply by the current sort of polling that the people is giving him. So that's my biggest argument, sort of privately, with the Pandam.
But you don't support CY. You want him to step down. You actually share that philosophy with the Pan Dems.
Exactly. Now, the reason I don't support CY is that I think he's making a mess out of Hong Kong in terms of governing Hong Kong. We always think that the Liberal Party, that the governance of Hong Kong is more important than how the election sort of come up with a CE. Whether it's direct election, a smaller group or bigger group, as long as you come up with a chief executive that can run Hong Kong effectively, that's more important. And right now, CY is simply not running Hong Kong sort of effectively or ineffectively. The reason is he's not talking to the Pan Dem. And why is the Pan Dem so influential? Other than the fact that they're elected by the people. Whenever we speak as legislators in the Legislative Council, all the media's caught up with it and put it on headline news. The people listen to the news, and that's how opinions are formed. So if CY as chief executive either doesn't talk to the Pan Dems, and I see in the last 2 years, another point I forgot to mention is that why is relation getting so bad? It's not only on this political reform bill, but in the past 2 years, since I've been back to the council, I find out that whenever government pushes some policy through the different panels in Hong Kong, whenever they propose something, they will not take any suggestion from legislators. And now you can see that difference in argument. Government is saying that if I am an executive-led government, whatever I propose, if I back off anything, that means I haven't thoroughly thought through this problem. So therefore, to be a strong government, whatever I table on the Legislative Council, I will not take any of your suggestion, whether you're Pan Dem or pro-establishment. So a lot of my colleagues on the pro-establishment side also complain. Whatever views we give you, any minor suggestions, workable on behalf of our people or voters, you say no, simply because you want to be a strong government, and you're not strong because the thing ain't working. Now, that's what that created the sort of conflict between executive and legislators. But on the legislator side, I guess at least the pro-establishment, like DAB or the trade unions or the business professional group, they ultimately, they just give the votes to government. But the Liberal Party is not doing that, and neither is the Pan Dem. That's what's creating all the conflict up to now between government and the Pan Dems.
All right, we'll come back to that topic again. Let's take a short break for now, but do stay with us. We'll be right back.